Shalom, everyone. Today we'll talk about Kipa. Last week or earlier this week, somebody asked about wearing a kippah and why girls don't. And my answer was a little bit offhanded, but it is true that the original source of the story of how we came to have a kippah is about boys being reminded that there's an authority above them that watches over them, Hashem, of course. And so it's supposed to remind us that there's always God. And so the story, which I've been saying wrong for years, which I thought was about Rav Tarfon, because he had a very special relationship with his mother. The Talmud in the second last page of Shabbat says that Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, we can learn also that there's no luck for Israel, meaning that if you are under certain stars or horoscope, that doesn't affect Jewish people. But the way that the rabbis learned it is actually from I guess, idea that they got from astrologists that was scary. So the Talmud tells us that Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's mother was told by the mediums, by the people who read your palm and look at the sky for the celestial beings in the time of birth, and so they told him that. They told her that this child will be a ganav, a thief, and so she used to tell him, without telling him about this encounter that she had with the people, Kasi Reishach, cover your hair, your head, cover your head so that the fear of heaven will be upon you, and pray for divine mercy. And the Gemara continues, he did not know why she said this to him. One day he was sitting and studying beneath a palm tree that did not belong to him, and the cloak fell off his head because apparently she made some kind of covering that didn't look like a kippah. He lifted his eyes and saw the palm tree. He was overcome by impulse, and he climbed up and detached a bunch of dates with his teeth. Apparently, he had this inborn inclination to steal, but was able to overcome it through this idea of covering the head, and remembering the Hashem. So it is somewhat related to our topic of women's prayer. But before we continue, I just wanted to show you some pictures, which I'm sure that you've all seen in different places. There's many different kinds of kippas, and if you just type in a crocheted kippah online, you'll get hundreds of results. And then so I'm sorry to say that this page of Chabad is not in English, but I'll try to translate because it's a short idea. It's from their dictionary of Jewish terms. So it says, Hareli takipa shetachovesh, show me the yarmulke that you wear, and I'll tell you which group you belong to, meaning which kind of belief system or values do you have. They say without the word unfortunately, but I'll say unfortunately because that's what my father always said. הכיפה נעשה סימן זיהוי בין הקבוצות השונות. The kippah became a recognizable symbol of what kind of group you are part of among the religious and ultra-religious communities. My father also did not like those titles because he didn't allow us to say that somebody is secular. Sometimes he would say, not yet dati. And so the assumption of most people is that if you are wearing a crocheted kippah suga, you belong to the religious Zionist camp or party, and people who wear a black kippah are usually ultra-Orthodox. There's Hasidim that wear the big white kippah that says Na Nachman and otherwise, but I want to dedicate this class in memory of my father because what he did for 3 years as a chemist in a lab was that for 3 years approximately, every week he would change his kippah to something else. That way people will not be able to tag him as, this, that, or the other. Towards the end of his life, people actually called him rabbi. He wasn't brought up religious, but his purpose of life was to teach. When people asked him what he does for a living, even though he could have told them that he works for a Roman compound, he said that he's raising a Jewish family. And so we already learned this halacha about the Kipa, but let's just see what Rav Melamed remind us of what Rav Melamed said about preparation for prayer. So a person must prepare himself for prayer, feel out towards God's majesty and glory, and specifically here when it says himself, it's because um, Rav Melamed does not believe that girls have to cover their head, and be happy that he is about to stand before the King of all kings in prayer. This should also be apparent in his dress. One's clothes should be respectable, fitting for one who stands before the king. Men are obligated to cover their heads while praying, while reciting the name of Hashem, and before entering a synagogue. However, in practice, based on the custom accepted in Judaism, men are careful to wear a kippah all day long, and Chabad add in a different section that there's people who even wear them in bed. So, when you're a baby, I've seen many people who made a small crocheted kippah or knitted kippah, and they had a little string that went under the chin to hold it in place even during the night. It's not an obligation, but it's just again this idea of Kipa. And I only found out a week or two ago where this weird name in Yiddish. Sorry, I shouldn't say weird, but for me it was weird. How is Kipa translated into Yarmulke? I didn't understand at all, and so I think it was Rabbi Rosner who talked about it in one of his recent classes, where he said that Yarmulke is two words in Hebrew, which mean YARE MALKA, somebody who is God-fearing or fearing of the king. And so back to that story of Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, where it said there Eimat Shamayim, but I think the proper translation should be one of awe, not fear, meaning that we aren't afraid that Hashem will strike us with a bolt of lightning, as some other religions do, but we do have that respect and reverence to Hashem. In any case, the obligation to wear kippah while praying, when reciting God's name, and while in the synagogue is greater, for it is rooted in law and not just in custom. Additionally, although there are those who say that single women must also cover their heads while praying and reciting brachot, it is customary for women not to be strict about this, and definitely not to wear kippah, because again, people will immediately say, "Oh, you're Reform or you're conservative or something else." And first of all, it's none of our business. But second of all, it's not appropriate to be in a place where that's not the custom and to do those things which are not usually accepted. One should wear a belt while praying, so we're not going to go into that. So I just wanted to basically end that when my father, alav shalom, really wanted people to understand that there wasn't anything specifically that could define him. He truly believed in keeping the mitzvot and to the best of his ability, and he, I think, never ever told somebody else that they're doing something wrong. In fact, as a Kohen, he was very excited to be asked to do a pidyon ben for our neighbor across the street. It's a tiny little lane. It's not even a street. There's only pedestrians there. And she had a baby grandson born, and my father found out when day 31 will be, and arranged the pidyon ben, and the grandmother made a small party and invited all kinds of friends and family. And then my father asked the young mother, "By the way, are you the daughter of a Kohen or a Levi?" And she said yes. So my father said, "Well, the Pidyon Ben is off, but we can still party." And it was just so beautiful how he was able to makarev them and influence people just by being kind and like I said, ish klali, a person who encompasses all of the people of Israel. So we'll stop here.